Hello friends, for today's video I wanted to go through what I consider to be the most underhyped books that I have picked up this year. And I do want to make a distinction between underhyped versus underrated, as underrated of course are when books have relatively low average ratings and you think maybe they deserve a higher average rating, and that's not necessarily the case today. By underhyped, I am referring to books that I think deserve so much more attention on them. They deserve to be household names, they deserve to have so much more recognition, and on top of all of that, I think a lot of people would not only enjoy them, but get a lot out of them. While I'm saying this is my top 5 most underhyped, technically it's 7, as one of them is a part of a trilogy, so there are 3 books, and I'll go ahead and kick things off with that one, and that would be the Protectorate Trilogy. This is a series that I started earlier this year, and then I ended up reading the entire trilogy, and I had such a good time with it. I will say a lot of my favorites typically are books that are really tapping into really important themes and have characters that I just can't get enough of. And this one kind of broke the mold a little bit. It takes a lot for a series to be something that I really enjoy purely because it's just so much fun. But I definitely think the Protectorate series accomplished that. This is sci-fi. I know I tend to usually gravitate towards fantasy. I've been trying to branch out a little bit and try more sci-fi because, of course, there's so much overlap between the genres. And this was such a great time. In the first book, you follow 2 main perspectives. There are more than just 2 within the first book, and it does expand over the course of the series, but the 2 main perspectives in book 1, Velocity Weapon, are 2 siblings. One, Sanda, is a character who wakes up after a battle that she was a part of, having been restored, and she wakes up discovering it's so many years later, and she is isolated. This AI in the ship, known as Barrow, is communicating to her, is informing her of what has happened, and they are going to try to work with her to try and find safety. She's going to try to survive as best she can with the resources she has and see if she can make it to a planet or some kind of civilization. And then you get her brother directly after the battle occurred, having heard the news that likely everybody has passed away from this, but he's holding out hope that maybe there are survivors, and of course he's hoping his sister is one of them. He is also part of the political elite within their society, the Keepers, who are the holders of really important knowledge within their world. And he is doing his best to manage all of the political machinations of those around him while also seeing if he can do something to rescue his sister. This trilogy had fantastic dialogue. The banter was really fun. They all had really distinct personalities. I enjoyed them. It felt like I was watching a movie with snappy dialogue in general. And I have noted in a previous video that sometimes they would have moments that were really cool, or they would have lines that you're like, oh, that was awesome. And you kind of just get sucked into the campiness of it all and the fun of it all. But then on occasion they would say something that just sounded so stupid and would fall flat, and then some other character would make fun of them, and it just felt realistic as a result. So you have these really memorable characters, you have really intense action, both close quarter and then kind of on more epic scales. And I know there are a lot of people that love a good space opera. They love the action-packed sci-fi setting, and I just feel like so many more people should check this out. I think a lot of people would really have fun with it, and there are so many twists and turns over the course of the trilogy. It just keeps on getting bigger and bigger and crazier and just so wild, and it was so fun. It was just such a great time. So if you are looking for, I have continuously described it as a classic summer blockbuster feel kind of a series, this one 100% will fit the bill. Very much switching directions from there. Next up we have a book that is technically part of another series, and it's kind of like the next era of that series. I would advise starting with the initial era. And also, I think that other era is also underhyped. So the first era would be the first book being Children of Gods and Fighting Men. I talked a lot about that trilogy when I picked it up last year. It's historical fiction fantasy, and you are looking at what is essentially real history, but you are mixing in folklore as if it actually existed. You follow 2 main perspectives over the course of the series, along with a few more as the trilogy expands, and those 2 main perspectives would be Gormla and Fola. Both of these characters are part of these mythical groups of people, one of which has fire powers, and the other one is more traditionally kind of seen as witch-like in a sense, as they have different sects, and within those they have different powers. So Fola is somebody who's a little bit more oriented around healing. Over the course of the story, you are seeing how they are involved with politics of the land, war, scheming, and how they are trying to survive through all of this. Fola's people are usually trying to almost play the role of spies, whereas the other character, Gormla, maybe she aspires to a little bit more than just survival, you could say. And I really loved that initial era. The next era, you do have some characters that were in the first era that appear, but you are kind of starting a new generation, and it does take place a decent amount later. The author is incredible at transporting you to the setting, making it feel as though, oh, that's actually real history. That's what it was like. There are people that had powers back then. That's what it feels like, because she just has a way of not only having such a firm grasp on history and being able to write characters that just feel like you are right there alongside them, but on top of that, she integrates the magical components just so seamlessly. The continuation has been great so far. I will say, currently, the first book in this continuation does kind of feel a little bit like middle book syndrome in a sense, because you are kind of transitioning out of that first era, and then you are getting into this second, so you're being introduced to new characters, new plot lines, kind of reintroducing previous characters from before. But I still greatly enjoyed it, and I think so many people would really, really love this series. After that, we have a nonfiction book, and that would be Half American. I thought that this was one of the best nonfiction books I have ever read. The subject matter is very serious. It's very challenging to read at times because you are having descriptions of real violent acts that are being articulated to you. So the idea is you are looking at during World War II, slightly before, and then just slightly after. And specifically, you are looking at Black Americans and their efforts to join the military, pushing for the military to be desegregated, but also you are looking at them as they are not only trying to fight the fight abroad, but at home as well, because of course they are fully aware that the ideals that they are representing in Germany and just in general during World War II, they also want to bring those back and try and ensure that they can truly be treated as equal citizens here in the United States. And the constant battle that is awful. It's real history, of course, like many of us know. And this book, I cannot recommend it enough because it does a great job of looking at the big picture issues and looking at the state of things, the feel of the country at that time, and also additionally having individuals and their stories throughout the course of it. Sometimes it can just be for a page. Sometimes you look at really important figures like Thurgood Marshall, for example, and how he played a role in a lot of really pivotal moments at this time. So you do have kind of those more intimate examinations while also looking at the bigger picture thing. Highly, highly, highly recommend this. It is phenomenal. Also, if you are somebody who tends to prefer audiobooks or you only have access to audiobooks for whatever reason, I did think that the audiobook narrator did a really fantastic job. It delivered everything really, really fantastically. After that, we have another book with daughter in the title, and that would be Daughter of the Forest. The writing in this is stunning, absolutely beautiful. I've said for me that this feels somewhat like what I think a lot of people feel towards Robin Hobb's writing, and I can see some parallels certainly, and some overlap across fans of one author to the next. The setup of this story is actually a Grimm fairy tale retelling, and it feels so rooted in nature. This is very tied to also our main character, and you are looking at a situation where her brothers have been turned to swans, and now she is tasked with trying to save them, and this entails her not speaking until she is able to complete this. It's going to sound kind of bizarre because, of course, many Grimm fairy tales do, but she has to try and make these shirts, and she cannot speak or really even make sound until she does this. She can't try to explain to anybody why she can't speak or why she is so determined to make these shirts, and the material she has to make these from is just so painful, and it is destroying her hands, which sounds so bizarre, but it is exceptionally beautiful in its writing. I feel that the character work is very well done. I do think it's important to note, anytime I bring this book up, that if you want to check it out, just know that there is some heavy content within this that is very difficult to read, so you might want to look up some of the details of that beforehand in case that is something that is important for you. But I thought that the book was amazing. I am so excited to check out more books by this author, and I know that she has a lot. And that's such a treat when you find a book or series and you realize the author has a huge backlist. It's wonderful. I can't wait to dive into more. This first book you can read as a standalone as the story kind of concludes. There are other books in this series, or you could say even almost like in this world, but the story of this character is basically complete after this first book. The last book for today, I do want to give a tiny bit of an explanation before I get into the book itself. The book is The Legacy of Brightwash. I read this one right around the end of 2025, beginning of 2026. So what I ended up doing is when I made a video for the most underhyped books of 2025, I mentioned that book there, and then I said, I will likely be bringing this up within 2026 videos also because I didn't get to talk about it basically at all over the course of 2025, and I thought it was fantastic, and I think it's underhyped, so I might be bringing it up again, which is what I'm going to do right now. So the book is very different in its setting from a lot of other fantasy books. It's also self-published, and I really enjoyed the audiobook for this one as well. I actually enjoyed the audiobook for basically all of these. I feel like the narrators did a fantastic job, but regardless, Legacy of Brightwash is a little bit more kind of steampunk Gaslamp, which, by the way, I did a whole video dedicated to steampunk, silkpunk, and Gaslamp if you are interested in more books that fall under the subgenre of those. But regardless, this book is more so within that. You follow this man who is kind of like almost like a detective a little bit, and at the beginning of the story, he comes across the body of a child. He doesn't really know what happened to this child, and of course, part of his job is looking into this, discovering this, but it seems as though there's some kind of link between this child and this prison that exists within their city. This prison also happens to be where his son is being held. And he has this constant questioning within himself about the state of his country, the state of his city, the roles that he plays within it, how maybe some of what he was told growing up, he's starting to question now and really reconcile a lot of his place in things. Beyond him, you also kind of have a few other perspectives over the course of the story as well. You are looking at people that are kind of part of the elite, how they want to use somebody like him. You are looking at his son and why he's imprisoned and the resilience that he has in standing to his principles. And then you also are seeing some other characters that clue you in a little bit to how people have to live in this very kind of oppressive way within their city. It is very good, very heavy. There's a lot of really well done themes over the course of this first book. It is the first in a series. Highly, highly, highly recommend. And I do think that this one's quite different from a lot of the other books that I've picked up. I would love to know for you, what is a book that you have picked up this year that you feel deserves so much more love? And I often really appreciate getting recommendations from all of you. So if there's a hidden gem out there that you've picked up this year, I would love to know what it is. If you're interested in any of the books that I mentioned, I will have not only the books themselves linked and their audiobooks, but any videos where I've gone more in depth about them, I'll have those linked as well. Thanks so much for watching though. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you later. Bye.